Here's a short story about a young guy who handles things right upon finding out that a gal he'd been on a couple dates with turned out to be the town bicycle, or in her situation, the dorm room hot dog eating champion. And on top of that, something even worse that made him say, nah, I think we're going to stop dating. And of course, she's not too happy about that. And even her friends, they're all trying to shame him for being basically the bad guy here. And now this guy's obviously wondering about the whole situation here. And that'd be a good one as a reminder, guys, that you as a man are too allowed to have standards. And if a gal you're dating or being involved with has things that you don't like, you can break it up with her for any reason. But as you know, it is the idea that men aren't allowed to have standards, and we are shamed, or at least people try to shame us for, God forbid, having that. And no greater way to shame a guy when it comes to the subject of body count and things like that. And that's what this guy's dealing with. And you don't ever deal with it. You don't put up with that crap, guys. Okay? And remember, when women try to shame you or argue with you about things like this, the worst thing you can do is engage with them. They want you to argue. They want you to debate. Because that's how they get the drama. Because they love drama. Ignore them, as difficult as that may be. Titled, Am I the a-hole for breaking up with a girl with a STD? And a shout out to Mr. Arkansas for sending this story. He says here, for some context here, I'm 20 years old, and I had one partner in my life. We were together for around 2 years, and last year being long distance. She dumped me more than a year ago in order to explore herself. We were both virgins, and we were each other's first. So I saw her point, although I didn't agree on it. Well, you know what? At least she broke up. At least she was honest. She wants to break up, and she obviously wants to ride the carousel. At least she told him. I mean, probably she was already riding the carousel, but at least she broke up with him. But now he's no longer a virgin. That was only with one girl. Well, I haven't been with another woman ever since, as I don't see the point on doing one-night stands or anything else. I tried to, but I realized I didn't get turned on enough, and I saw I didn't have an emotional connection with the other person. Wow, this guy's like old school compared to his young generation. That the young generation is like, what's a connection? Anyway, I had a crush on this girl who's 24. Let us call her A. Well, I'm not going to call her A. I'm going to call her Amanda. Amanda, I had a crush on her for some time, and I finally asked her out. And we've been on a couple of dates. Everything was good, and we seemed to get along. She brought up the topic of previous partners, as some of her friends wondered if I was a virgin. Now, why might they wonder that? Probably because their perception of him is a pushover Mr. Nice Guy. I told about my preferences and about how I had a midterm relationship with a gal, and this was my only experience. I then asked her, and although she initially refused, she admitted to having a crazy year last year where she slept with 14 guys, no more than 3 times with the same guy. Oh, well. She's, spreading the love around. No more than 3 times, guys. Okay, so I'm going to stop right here. 14 guys. How many of you guys listening to this actually believe it was 14 guys? You know, the old rule, multiply times 3. So now we got, what we got here? 42. And let's just round it up to 50, because why not? And even then, I'm sure 50 probably isn't accurate. But it was a lot of dudes. A lot of sausage. That's why I said she was the hot dog queen. Yeah, that'd be a check, please, for me. It says here, she also claimed to have had 3 other more serious partners as well. Oh, well, add on 3 more. This just made me feel a bit worried as I saw how different our backstories were and how this could affect us. However, the last straw broke the camel's back when I asked her what made her stop her crazy year. And then she replied that she got syphilis from the last one. Well, that's bound to happen, and there's more information here. Well, I just laughed a bit, thinking she was joking. We both got a bit drunk and had dark humor. But she looked seriously at me and said she was being treated, and since she got diagnosed early, she was told she could get over it easily. I went silent for a bit and then tried to continue with the date. However, we were out of the mood, and I decided it was my best to go home, so I called a taxi for her, and she paid for it though. Yeah, after that conversation, it would definitely be a check please moment. Yeah, I'd be out of there. So this is the guy who he's been with one woman. And he's a one-woman type of guy. He doesn't like to do one-night stands and all that. And now he's on a couple dates, and turns out the girl is the carousel rider whose 14 guys got syphilis, and we all know it was way more than 14 guys. I mean, let's be honest. 14 guys she probably claimed all the way, and there's probably other guys that got BJs in the bathroom or behind the gas station or something like that. Who knows? Yeah, they're not exactly aligned. Well, this morning we chatted for a bit, and she admitted to have let all 3 of her boyfriends and like 10 of the guys F her without any protection. Well, that explains the syphilis. Yeah, what a great girl. So aside from being, a tad bit promiscuous and not his type, she's also dumb as shit. Really? Risking that? I told her that was quite irresponsible and was a deal breaker for me, so she could consider our thing broken. She claims she understood. However, her friends, some of them common, or that's what I thought, have been calling me insensitive, pitiless, and old-fashioned. Am I the a-hole? No, bro, you're not the a-hole. Why would you want to be involved with a gal like that? Putting aside various things, you're not compatible. It's not going to work. And guess what? This chick's going to definitely have pair bonding issues. When enough sausage has been gone through her little, hot dog processing plant, then, good luck having a connection. Because science has proven that. Studies have done. They can see so much sausage, it's not going to work. And this guy actually wants to have, him and her, a relationship with a girl he can actually trust with some standards here, which I know is groundbreaking and shocking for the young generation. So no, he's not the a-hole. He's every right to break up with her, and who cares what her friends are saying. But of course, this is what they do. They try the shaming tactics. You must ignore them. Now, the comment section is full of all sorts of things, and I'm going to read his responses to various questions. You'll get a little more info about him and his situation. One guy says, you don't owe anybody any explanation for how you feel about the subject, not the a-hole. And he says here, as I told some other Redditors, I've only met one girl who didn't have unrealistic requirements. And which wasn't triggered by my preferences. She was my ex, and she changed her mind. So as I'm told by every woman my age that I should date a nun or go back to the 1800s with being built like Captain America, pre-steroids, and not the most beautiful flower in the garden. I wonder if I should work in my standards for sex, which I already tried but never felt like something I could change, or there's something wrong with me. So, in other words, people are telling him he's old-fashioned. That he's go back to the 1800s, date a nun because he's not into this hookup lifestyle. Well, here's the thing. There are both men and women that aren't quite into this Tinder lifestyle here, but it's becoming few and far between. That is unfortunate. That is the reality. That's why I call it Sodom and Gomorrah 2.0. Another one, a guy says, can someone explain to me why the F does it matter what some friends think about a matter that does not concern them in the slightest? Why do these posts always include the BS line about friends disapproving or family being split up? How the hell in the name of holy ChatGPT is that relevant? And the young guy says here, I can explain further. Since my breakup, and considering 5 months I took to process it, I've liked around 6 girls. 2 of them had a boyfriend, so I did not interfere. The other 2 just rejected me. The other one, who wasn't the girl, which the post is about, got on a date with me, but left after I told her about wanting to develop connection prior to getting sexual, asking me if I landed from the 15th century. On a date, he says he wants to get to know a girl before he starts hooking up. Have a connection. And she walked out on him, ending the date. Again, welcome to Sodom and Gomorrah 2.0. Now, frankly, I'm sure a lot of you are thinking, well, he could have just banged her and left, but that probably is another girl with 14 guys during her wild previous year. Yeah, welcome to the times. But good for him to sticking, if he wants to, sticking, good choice of words here. Good for him by standing by what he wants, his own values and all that. But, yeah, he's going to clash with this generation. He says, some other classmates of mine, mostly in high school, have told me these things and others like go date a nun or just misogynistic when I told them I wouldn't like to have a stand with someone I wasn't dating. My ex was by my side then, but considering how much she changed, made me wonder if I'm in the wrong since no woman in my generation seems to share my point of view. That is really unfortunate, but that is the times. But he has to stick by his guns. He can't change who he is to match this generation. And frankly, why should he? He's going to be the one walking out of there that isn't catching an STD, that isn't going to have his girlfriend or some chick get pregnant. And last one, this guy says, not the a-hole. Dude, this was rough to read. If I had this kind of conversation with a woman and she said, oh yeah, syphilis, haha, I wouldn't be talking to her afterwards. I'd be polite about it, but yeah, syphilis is a big one, especially if you only ever had one partner. The friends of hers seem to be a-holes trying to defend their friend, but at the end of the day, your body, your choice. And if this is how you feel, then nothing they say can change it. It also sounds like this girl would have continued to have guys run through her if it wasn't the STD. I think he dodged a bit of a bullet here. You bet your ass he did. Can you imagine him in a relationship with her? Do you think she's going to be able to be honest with him and stick with him? No freaking way. But it's got to be tough being young these days and having all these guys and gals that you go to high school with, sadly, or college, behave in a manner that, would shame your parents and make your grandparents turn in their graves. That's got to be hard, but you got to stand by your principles. And I think eventually this guy will meet people that are like him. And it's not like he doesn't want to get it on. It's just he actually doesn't want to be, a one-night stand type of guy, a Tinder type of guy. But anyhow, there you go. Stand by what you want, guys, and you are allowed to have standards, no matter how unpopular that may be.